Good morning. Make sure that you have your cameras on. For attendance, you need to have your cameras on, and you need to make sure that your name says your full name. So I see like Latavia, yours says Latavia iPad. Make sure you change that, put your last name, otherwise we don't know how to enter it into Child Plus without the last name, okay?
Okay.
If you don't know how to rename yourself, if you just hover over your picture, there'll be the 3 little dots, and if you click on the 3 dots, it'll give you an option to rename. Sound. We're gonna wait a little bit because I know that today has been super crazy. I've seen 5,000 emails and people couldn't get in. So that's why I just set up my own with my own account. All right, let's see. Rooms. All right, I changed your name for you. Good morning, good morning. If you have more, like if you're in a center with more than one person, please in the chat put the names of everybody that is in the room, okay? Because the screen only shows who's logged in, but it won't show if all of you in there. Thank you, Jessica. I see that you sent that. Make sure you put first and last names. So when we're entering this into Child Plus for your training credits, so we know who was here. Make sure you also have your cameras on, okay? Now, I don't care if you're cleaning the classroom or walking around, because you know me, I am not good with technology. This is not how I like to train. I like to train in person with touch and stuff. So I was doing pre-service yesterday in Jacksonville, and I was about to lose my mind watching that screen, y'all. Like I just can't even handle it. So I started cleaning my whole office, cleaning, putting down, retiling my office floor. But I was listening, but I just can't sit there and listen. So I will not be offended if you're moving around, but just make sure that your cameras are on, okay? All right, let's see what our time is. Good morning, good morning. Okay, let me see. I just let some people in from the waiting room. I don't know why it's doing that. I don't see anybody else in the waiting room. Did Lisa get in? Oh, there it goes. Got it. All right, I see Lisa, so she's in. Hi, Miss Farah. Hi, Miss Armstrong. Good morning. Can everybody see my PowerPoint on the screen? Yes? Okay. Just do thumbs up so I can, because I have you all muted, so we're not having a bunch of feedback. All right, I'm gonna wait like one more minute just because I know people are coming from other trainings. Did you guys, were you able to get into the other trainings? No, right? Yeah. So Pinellas, you guys are always my special family. The other pre-services went great. Just Pinellas tried to do something a little bit different, tried to run all of their things at one time, like have 5 or 6 sessions like we would normally do if we were in person. And you can't do that using the same Zoom account. So that's what caused the issues. Do I don't know who is supposed to be facilitating this presentation for me. So I'm gonna facilitate it myself and try and make sure I'm letting everybody in as they come in. So, all right, I think I turned off the waiting room, so hopefully everybody should just be able to come in. All right, we good? Everybody can hear and see and everything? Put in the chat if you're having any issues. If you can't hear, you can't see, something's not working, the chat's gonna be how we communicate, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through the presentation, and then at the end, I'm gonna go back to the chat. I'm gonna have to close the chat down for, it's gonna still be there. You can still put your questions in the chat, but I'll come back to it at the end to answer any questions, okay? That way I don't have to try to keep it up on my screen. All right, let's begin this, y'all. Take a deep breath for a minute, because it's been a stressful, it's been a stressful morning. So let's just reset our brain. So I don't know if you know, but if you hold your breath for 4 to 5 seconds, it actually resets your brain. So when you're having stress and tension and anxiety, that's a really easy way to like reset. So let's just reset for a minute, okay? Take a deep breath. Now blow it out. We're gonna blow out all the frustration from this morning and restart. All right, let's do this. Now, y'all know I am big on interaction and toys and all that. So this is my first time ever, you guys are my guinea pigs, my first time ever doing a training via Zoom, and I don't use PowerPoint. I used to back in the day, but I don't use PowerPoints because I don't like to just read from a PowerPoint. But because this is the method that we have to use right now to keep everybody safe, I am going to try to make this as engaging as possible, okay? Just remember to put any questions in the chat and we'll come back to them at the end. Each workshop has a code word, so I will tell you what my code word is. That'll be a part of the quiz. And there's 5 questions for the quiz, which I'll put the quiz in the chat after we're done, okay? All right, let's do this. So this is individualization in the infant and toddler classroom. So everybody in here is infant and toddler teachers, correct? Yes? Thumbs? Okay, good. Then you're in the right place. If you're not infant and toddler teachers, I can't see everybody. This is the wrong workshop for you. Miss Crystal Thomas, Miss Pat, and Miss Farah, please turn on your cameras. Just as an FYI, just some housekeeping things. You have to have your camera on during the training, okay? And you have to make sure that your name is correct on the screen so I can get attendance, because it takes attendance that way. The report will show whatever name. So if you have your child's name on here, rename yourself to make sure it's you, so you get your attendance. Put questions into the chat. And the training, if you log out, it tells on the report how long you were on, okay? So for instance, if Miss Jessica comes in, gets the code word and leaves, it tells me when she leaves. Not saying that you would, Miss Jessica, but just saying that's how it's gonna go. So the reports, when they're doing the attendance, will show how long each person was in the training. Okay? All right, so let's go. Let's do this, y'all. So before we start, I just wanted to show you guys these cool posters. You'll probably see them in your classrooms. I sent them to the education leads yesterday because people were asking some questions on how we're going to greet the children if we can't do a lot of touching. Now, in infant and toddler classrooms, you're still going to be doing a lot of touching. But here's some socially distancing ways to greet your kids. So your older kids waving, saluting, the foot bump, winking, air hugs. So just some creative ways for the greetings. Bowing, elbow bumps, spirit fingers. I don't know about the tip your hat thing, but, and curtsying. So these are some just cool, fun ways to kind of greet even your parents, or when the parents come with other kids, this is a great way to do that, okay? Totally off subject, but I just wanted to share it with you. All right, so what's individualization? The Webster's Dictionary says that individualization is to make individual or distinctive. So you're going to give it an individual or distinctive character. All of you understand how to individualize. We're just kind of fine tune it today, because I know in an infant and toddler classroom, it's a little bit different than it is for the preschool kids. A lot of people always tell me, babies don't learn stuff. They don't need to be in a classroom. I get that all the time at different conferences. And I'm like, this is the best time. This is the most critical time to teach and learn and watch development. Because I always say, my EHS teachers, you guys need to be getting paid like you are first round draft picks, okay? Because the impact that you guys have on learning and development of children is what gets them to be those Barack Obamas. You know, they don't get to that stage without us, okay? So the infant and toddler teachers, you guys are so essential. You should be listed as essential, okay? Because that's how important it is what you do. So when we're looking at individualization, when you're individualizing child development plans, you don't have to take notes if you don't need to. I will send the PowerPoint out, okay, if you want the PowerPoints, okay? So first thing you need to be looking at is to incorporate the goals. And the goals should all be aimed at the developmental progress for each child across the domain. So everybody's using Teaching Strategies Gold, right? Is that what you use? Yes? Okay. So those are the domains that they're talking about. And they should contain the following 3 elements. So the experiences that the child has, that supports their next steps, the environment needs to be designed to support a child's progress, and evidence that each child's plan is tailored to fit their needs. So for instance, if I come from a household where we yell a lot, and I bring my baby to your classroom, and my child tends to talk really loud, that could be because of the environment they live in, okay? So we need to take into consideration those things. And we need to make sure that our environment is supportive of their needs. So when you're looking at individualizing things for your kids, it's really going to be a lot based on relationship and how well you know the children that you're serving. Now, I promise you guys, I will probably go through my PowerPoint faster because I start talking about stuff and it'll already be on the slide. I didn't even get to it yet. So, so we don't pay too much attention to that. So here's some questions that I want you guys to ask yourself. Here's 4 questions when you're thinking about individualization. These are 4 questions I want you to look at, okay? What skills has the child mastered? What skills lead to frustration or a challenge for that child? What engages the child? And how does the child react to objects and others around them? So these are 4 important questions to look at whenever you're thinking of, when you're trying to plan for individualization. So let's look at the child in this picture. This child is clearly very engaged by this teacher's face, okay? So that's something that this child likes. Have you ever had a child that didn't like to be touched? Thumbs up, thumbs down? Have you ever had a child that was super sensitive to loud noises? Like would just like have a moment over a loud noise. How about, so that's why it's important to see, for instance, I've seen a child before that would literally have almost in hives over having to do anything that required them to hold or write anything. They didn't want to color, they didn't want to play with, they didn't want anything fine motor was an issue, was a trigger for them. So these are things that you need to make sure that you're documenting, that you're really paying attention to them. Also, when you're thinking about individualizing children in your age group, play is really important. So do any of you, by show of hands, just raise your hand, if you have some children in your classroom that tend to play by themselves a lot? Do you have that? So you have, I see you, Molly. So you have that child that kind of sits to the corner and does a lot of solitary play. How many of you have the children that are super social butterflies and want to play with everybody? Right, you have those too. How many of you have that one little girl that bosses everybody else around and runs the classroom, the little mama child? I see you, Miss Lisa. So children have different stages. So for instance, Miss Molly, your child that likes to play solitary, that's very solitary in their play, you can't take a child that's solitary and move them directly into playing with Miss Lisa's interactive little girl, bossy girl, okay? Because that child won't thrive. It's too quickly for that child. So when you have a child that is solitary, that tends to play by themselves, a way to individualize things for them is to move them into playing with one other child. Putting toys or things that engage them, that child, next to another child that's better at socialization, and just get them introduced to 2 children, okay? Now, for those people that have the really interactive child that loves to play with everybody, those children tend to be a little bit like takeover kids. They kind of run the show. So a good individualization for them is to see how they interact one-on-one. Kind of remove them from the group settings and try them with a 2-pair too. And see if they can do back and forth with children without getting frustrated if they don't have that control, okay? Water play is essential for your grades, for your age children, because it actually teaches behavior management. It teaches self-control. I know sometimes teachers hate water play because it's so messy, but water play will literally help behaviors in the classroom. I went in to do an observation at a school. I think it was a what is it called? Kinder care or something? One of those preschools, doesn't matter. And the 2-year-old teacher was asking me, she was like, you know, I have such a hard time in the 2-year-old class. They called it World War II because you know how 2-year-olds can be. And she was like, they just are everywhere. They're fighting over this and that. And I asked her, I said, how much water play do you do in your classroom? And she was like, girl, I hate water play. Like, I don't want to clean all that up. So I went in her classroom. The kids are killing each other, by the way, in the classroom. I mean, they are fighting, kids are crying, and I just turned on the sinks. She had like 3 sinks in there. I turned on the sinks and I filled them up with water, and I put a few little toys in each of the sink, and literally you could watch all the children were like, what is that? They all gravitated toward the sink. They're splashing, they're playing, they're laughing, and she's looking at me like, how in the world did you just do that? Water is so amazing for infants and toddlers. So if you're trying to individualize for a super active child, I call them my happy classroom challengers, water. Add some more water to this. Now, water's going to be a little bit difficult with our new COVID things, okay? So you're going to have to figure out how to separate them out. One of the things that I had suggested is that you do specific toy bins for each child, because you're going to have small classrooms right now. So do toy bins. So this is Molly's toy bin. This is Shanita's toy bin, because you can only use toys that we can sanitize right now, okay? All right. So when you're individualizing, there's 9 things that you really need to take in consideration when you're looking at the individual child, okay? So now we're looking at just the child. So one of the things is, the first thing is gender. Next is temperament. What are their interests? What is their learning style? What is their life experiences, culture, language, ability, and disability? And we're going to break each one of these down. Okay, so why would we look at gender? Gender influences a child's behavior and their own expectations. You want to help children understand that your classroom is a place to explore freely. One of the big things that comes up with gender is usually with boys, right? So how many of you have a dress-up area in your housekeeping? Just raise your hands. Do you have dress-up clothes? How many of you have had that little boy that puts on the princess dress? Or that likes to cook all the time or play with the baby doll? Dads hate that. I have had dads just flip out. Why is my son wearing the princess dress and playing with the baby doll? So this is where gender is going to come into it, because this is what I always tell parents. At our school, in school with us, these are educational experiences. We are intentionally playing and teaching through play. At home, you don't have to allow your son to play with the baby doll or wear dress up, but in class, everything we do is for educational purposes, okay? So one of the reasons that the boys dress up in the princess gown is because we don't have enough boy stuff, or as interesting boy stuff. Kids at this age don't know that it's a boy or a girl thing. They just see textures and colors and how it feels and a big hat. So if you don't have enough of those things, it won't attract the boys. So they just want to play with stuff. There's no gender specifics at this age, at infants and toddlers. Next, if you have parents that are saying, I don't want my son playing with this baby doll, remind them that one of the reasons why you have so many child abuse cases related to men is because of that fact right there. We don't want my son to play with the baby doll. But if your child doesn't learn how to hold a baby, how to be gentle with the baby, they are more likely to abuse their own child. They are more likely to abuse women, because women, we're taught to nurture. We're taught to play with the baby doll. We're taught to comb her hair, feed her. But boys are it's really frowned upon for boys to do that. But that's one of the reasons why boys are so aggressive, because we're like, you need to be tough, you need to be strong, you need to play with the sword. So as infant and toddler teachers, when you're looking at gender things, every moment is a teachable moment, okay? If they're putting on the dress-up dress, the princess dress, did they put it on correctly? That's a really good skill, right? It takes a while to be able to dress yourself. So you're thinking from an education standpoint, and even when you're explaining that to the parents, that's where you need to come from, okay? An education standpoint for all of them. All right, so temperament. Temperament is a big thing. No, each child's behavior is in a variety of settings and throughout the day. How do children respond to their environment? Are they understanding how children are likely to react to people and events will help you be a more responsive and effective teacher. So, for instance, if I'm individualizing for the child in the picture, let's just say this child is having a hard time separating from mom, which for you guys is going to be the case because now parents can't come into the centers, right? So you may see more of this. You need to work through what this, first of all, when children cry when their parent leaves, does anybody know what that's called? You can type it in the chat if you know. Hold on, let me go to it. So when children cry when their parent leaves, that's called secure attachment. That means I am secure with, I'm secure with the caregiver that's bringing me here. If it's the grandparent, the aunt, that crying, even though it can be very irritating for us, because it can be disruptive to starting your day, it actually is a good thing because it means I have a secure attachment to my caregiver. So when you're individualizing for a child that has a hard time letting go in the morning, you need to create a secure attachment to you and your other teacher. Whether that is through singing their favorite song, doing a morning greeting, playing peekaboo, whatever it is that engages that child, you need to reenact that in the mornings to help that child build that same secure attachment with you. So we know that children build secure attachments when they feel safe, when they feel loved, and they feel cared for, right? So these are things that you can do to individualize for that child. All right. Interests. You want to make sure to make it a practice to nurture the children's interests. This conveys the message that you value what's important to them and help them gain new skills and confidence. Now, I have 6 children, and when 2 of them are in elementary school, but my 2 younger children, my 10-year-old son, when he was in preschool, he was this child in this picture, okay? My husband is the chef, and this was my son. The kitchen was his favorite part of the day. He loved this kitchen. But I have gone into centers, not saying necessarily you guys, because I do observations throughout the state, and the kitchen has no food, same little rusty old dirty pots, baby dolls is all jacked up, ain't got no hair, no clothes. I'm just like, oh my goodness. So one of the ways to really get kids engaged is to play to their interest. And when you do that, you're able to see a lot better what the needs are of the child. So when you're watching, for instance, this little boy is playing in the kitchen. If I was individualizing something specific for him, I would really want to see, so he has all the food here. A good individualization for a child that can do really good social dramatic play, which is what he's doing right here, is to take away things. So instead of giving him food, maybe I would put water in one of those pots, see if he stirs it, and maybe give him some Play-Doh and see if he can replicate any of these foods, see what he does with it. So these are all really good ways to see what happens if you up the level and individualize something for this child, okay? All right. Learning styles. So I know a lot of times we always think about learning styles when we're thinking about adults and how we learn. But take all styles of learning, which would be auditory, visual, and kinesthetic, because you don't really have, there's another style which is the writers, but we don't really have writers in infants and toddlers. Not yet. Take those into account when you're offering learning opportunities in your classroom. You want to consider whether you tend to provide learning experiences primary in your own preferred learning style. So how many of you, by show of hands, are auditory learners? Like, this presentation will just be the best for you because you hear it, you can learn it, you do it. It's not surprising that nobody's really raising their hands because as teachers, auditory is just not our way. We're very creative and hands-on. So how many of you are visual learners? Yeah, I'm a visual learner too. I can see it, But to really learn it, how many of you are kinesthetic? You need to touch it, you need to feel it, you need to do it yourself. Yeah, so teachers typically are visual or kinesthetic learners. Just because we need to touch, move, see it, I need to reenact it, I need to watch it a few times. I have a photogenic memory, so if I watch it or look at it, I can remember things, but I can't just from a slideshow. Like, I really need to see it for a little while. Yeah, touch it, smell it, look at it. So children have the same type of learning styles that we do. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen real quick, and I'm gonna show you this video. Hold on one second. So what we're gonna look at is, this is a read aloud being done in the infant toddler classroom. So she has babies in the background. She has an age range that you would typically have in your classrooms, okay? And what I want you to look at is, I want you to look at and type in the chat the different learning styles that you see her addressing. So if you see her doing things visually, if you see her using her auditory, you see kinesthetic, I want you to kind of point out and look at what you see in this video, okay? All right, so hold on. And let's go to the video. All right, can everybody see the video on the screen? All right.
Boys and girls, have you seen this before?
Can everybody hear?
What do you think is inside? What do you think is inside my bag? Do we know? Okay, we don't know. Okay, we're gonna sing a special song, okay? Here we go. We're gonna remember what's inside it. This? You do this? I have a red bag, a red bag, a red bag. I have a red bag with a lion inside. A lion? Is there a lion in my bag? Oh, I don't think so. Do you hear a lion? Hold on. What does a lion say? Wow. Hold on. Do you hear a lion? No? She says no. Okay, let's try it again. Here we go. I have a red bag, a red bag, a red bag. I have a red bag with pizza inside. Is there pizza in my bag? Did I put pizza there? You say no? Let me see. I don't smell pizza. You're right. What do you think that is? What is it? What is it?
What do we have inside? Wait, Joey, what do we have inside? What? I'm not here.
There, okay. It sounds to me like there might be books inside here, so we're going to sing it this time. And we're going to say there's books inside, okay? Here we go. I have a red bag, a red bag, a red bag. I have a red bag with books inside. Can we see? You guys want to see? Okay, here we go. Let's see.
Okay, so can everybody hear me? Can you still hear me? Yes? Okay. So what did you see so far? What learning styles do you see? We see visual, right? So what's the visual that you see? What's she using as her visual? Right, the bag. And she's doing a great job of using this as a visual, right? What else do you see? Do you see critical thinking? So this may be a goal that she had for one of her kids or all of her kids to increase their critical thinking skills, right? Because clearly there's not a pizza in this bag, right? Or a lion. But by adding those things in there, the kids are having to use their critical thinking skills, right? So we're going to assume that that's an individualization that she had for some of her kids, is to really get them to think, really get them to question things, really get them to ask more questions. So how about the kinesthetic? What kinesthetics do you see so far? What you see? You're right. So she's asking them to smell the bag. Thank you, Miss Molly. She's asking them to smell the bag. They're also doing the patting on the lap, right? Because we know that rhythm and rhyme help memory, helps us retain information when we're doing this. So those are some of the kinesthetic things that she's adding. The singing is wonderful, and she's engaging the children in that. Singing would be towards the auditory. What other auditory do you see? Because she's not just singing to them, but she's doing something very specific that a lot of teachers do. Well, all good teachers do this. But how about her tone? Tell me about the tone. So when she's singing, she's using a high-pitched tone. She's changing her voice. Now, I have gone into EHS classrooms and I have watched people read books to the children. And they just pull out the book and the teacher just starts reading it. Infants and toddlers, even preschoolers, infants and toddlers are not engaged by you just reading them a book. How many of you have your own kids? Have you ever read a book? Right. Have you ever read a book to your kids and they're just like, infants and toddlers babies start pulling the book. They done walked off. Story time is over. That's why, because the engagement level is not reaching visually, auditory, and kinesthetic. Whenever you do anything, make sure you include all three of them. So I want you to see what she does here. Hold on.
Oh my goodness. We're going to read this one. You picked the book I was going to read. You picked it. Good job. Look, boys and girls, what is this? It's a gorilla. Can you say gorilla? Gorilla. And this is called From Head to Toe. Can you do that? From head to toe. And this is written by Eric Carle. He is the author. Look at all of those beautiful colors. Can you point to red? Can you point to red? Good job. Can you point to green? Green. Green. Can you point to green?
Yeah.
Good job. And can you point to yellow?
With the yellow.
Yellow?
Okay.
Okay, well, next. We'll try it again.
Okay, so do you see how that one child, when she asked them to point to the colors, there was the one little girl's like, here's that color. The other one's like, here's that color. But then there was one child that couldn't get it, right? Was either too shy to touch the picture or doesn't know the color. So there's an individualization opportunity right there, right? Even for the child that could point to the colors, that an individualization for them could be, if you mix red and blue together, what color would that make? Can you point to 5 different colors? Can you point to 5 blue things in the classroom? Anything like that. So you don't want to always assume that a child that is getting it doesn't have any room to improve that, okay? Or there's nothing you can individualize for that child. There's something you can individualize for every single child. All right, so let's stop sharing this video. That's the only thing I don't like about Zoom, is that you can't just share from 2 different things. You have to stop sharing and then reshare again. Okay, so now let's look at life experiences. Now we know in Head Start that a lot of our children come from low-income households, households with possibly a lot of trauma or lack of resources in the community, young parents, which can also be a life experience. We also have kids that come from 2-parent households. We have kids that come from raised by their grandparents, the aunt, the uncle, all different types of things. So how much do you know about the life and the circumstances of the children in your class? Developing respectful relationships with your families encourages them to share meaningful details that might affect the child's behavior. So one of the biggest things that I always try to tell teachers is get to know your parents. Some parents are not willing to open up about things, but let's just say, Miss Loretta, let's say I came in your classroom and I asked y'all, can y'all all just give me your social security numbers? I know y'all laughing because you probably wasn't looking over here and I done called you out. But if I came in that classroom right now and said, could y'all just write down your social security numbers? What you gonna do? You giving it up? No, and that's one of the things that we have to keep in mind is we ask parents for a lot of personal information in Head Start. The government makes us, but whether or not we need it versus how we request it is a difference, okay? In order for you to be successful in really making sure that the learning is tailored towards the children in your classroom, you have to know the parents. You have to get to know them. And I always tell people to build connection. So connection is super easy. So I could say, this is what I do. Let me pick somebody. All right, so I could say, oh my gosh, Miss Alicia, I love your glasses. Those are so cute. Where did you get them from? Now, I can't see under her mask, but she might be smiling. And she's like, these glasses I was looking for, I'm making sure I look cute. So I connect with her right then, right? Because no matter how bad her day is or what she's thinking about or how she don't want to talk to me, people can't resist a compliment, okay? If you tell me right now my hair is looking laid, I'm like, girl, thank you. And then you say, can you send me that whole presentation I needed later? It's a difference, right? Now, if you would have asked me for it before giving me the compliment, I'd be like, I have way too much to do. It's pre-service week. You're going to need to wait. But if you give someone a compliment and connect with them before you do, Head Start requires us to ask you these 5 million questions, then you are able to get the information and more genuine. Now, in social service, I've worked in social services for almost 20 years now. In social services, the attitude is, I'm giving you something. You're here for me. I'm giving you something. I'm in charge. So parents tend to not be genuine when they tell you things. Number one, they know we're mandated reporters. Number two, we are strangers. And number three, I don't want to do nothing to mess up this free childcare for my kid, okay? So when you're talking to your parents and trying to get to know them, you need to make sure that you're genuine. If a parent tells you they had a really bad day today, what happened today? Is there anything I can help you with? They may tell you, they may not tell you. But then the next day, if you say, I hope your day was better. I know yesterday was really hard for you. I hope your day was better because Molly was a little fussy today, and I don't know if she probably had a bad day too. But the remembering of what you said to them or what they said to you the day before is a connection builder, okay? So if parents tell you something and you don't remember and you don't ask follow-ups, if a parent says, I'm having a tough day today, one of my parents just died or some of my family just died, and the next day you say, I just wanted to check in with you. I know that you weren't doing too well. I'm so sorry again for your loss. If there's anything that you need, let me know. They automatically feel like this person cares about me. So when you say, is there anything that maybe Crystal might need? I know it's a tough time in your family right now. Is there anything that I can do to support Crystal more? Then they feel more apt to tell you, well, this is what's going on. And then it can tell you why this child may have been crying every day. How many of you have kids in your classroom? Because you're starting potty training in EHS, right? Do you start potty training in your class? Yeah? How many of you ever had a child that just pees all the time? Like the toilet could be right there and they'll still wet themselves. Miss Molly, you've had that? Yeah, and Miss Williams, I see some people nodding their head in your classroom. One of the things that you need to look at, if you see a child that is peeing a lot, did something happen? Because children that pee can be because of loud noises. If you have trauma in the household and there are loud noises in the classroom, or something drops, or it's too loud, the kids are too rowdy, that can cause that, okay? Another thing, I have a child with mental health issues. One of the things that we learned about kids who have sensory issues is he would wet, when he was in preschool, he would wet himself whenever he wore jean material or overalls. That he felt confined in that material. So he would wet himself, not because he couldn't use the bathroom, but because he wanted to change his clothes. He knew what was in his cubby to change. There was like gym shorts and a t-shirt, but the sensory, the feel of it was better than the jeans and the overalls that he would put on. And it took us a while to figure out what was happening. So these are things that as infant and toddler teachers really look at how your children are reacting to things. If I put this texture on you, does that bother you? And try to talk to the parents. Say, hey, you know, whenever I lay Cynthia on the carpet for tummy time, she seems to get really irritated. And they may be like, well, I never put her down. She's never on the floor. Anybody got parents that put their kid in that car seat or the swing and kind of like that's the babysitter? Have you ever had that? When I taught infant and toddlers, we had a lot of, especially young parents, really rely on that swing and would leave them in there. So another thing that you want to look at is the culture of the family, okay? Talk to the family about their own unique child rearing practices and beliefs to avoid assigning cultural labels based on ethnic or racial or religious identifications. Consider each family's beliefs, values, and practices and how they might influence the child and think. So this is what I hear a lot. This is what this is talking about. Culture can be household culture. It doesn't have to be a racial culture, a ethnicity culture, a religion-based culture. Culture can be very specific to household. For instance, people tend to say Black moms beat their kids. And we know by beating, we mean like getting the belt out, right? That tends to be a stigma that comes with being an African-American mom, right? And then there's a stigma of Caucasian moms put their kids in timeout, right? That is not the case because that's making a generalization for a racial group, saying that culturally based, this is the case. Now, some of that may be true because of child rearing, but we need to look at, when we're in infant and toddler classroom, I want you to really look at the culture of their home, not if they're Muslim, if they're Black, if they're Creole, if they're Caucasian. Don't look at those things as much. I really want you to consider culture to be home-based. What kind of home do they live in? How is their parents? What kind of discipline do they use at home? Because one of the reasons why some kids act up in school is because they get spanked at home, but they know you can't spank them. So they're going to try your Jesus every day because they know you can't spank them, because that's what mom does. But if you know that mom spanks at home, then you can kind of tailor how you do your discipline in the classroom. Doesn't mean you're calling mama every day or calling daddy every day, but it's good information to know how parents are rearing and disciplining the children at home, because you can figure out how to adjust to that type of, and probably teach your parents a little bit about discipline skills that actually work. Because remember, with discipline, culturally based or not, the end result is to teach a lesson. That's the whole point of discipline, is to teach a lesson. My 10-year-old son, he is the child that makes you, like, I went through my master's and graduate degrees with my trainer kids when they were going, so I tested everything out on them, and he is the child, like, if I start yelling at him, he's like, you're yelling, Mom. What is that teaching me? Is that teaching me the lesson? Am I really gonna stop doing what you're asking if you're raising your voice? Shouldn't you take the time to really understand why? And I'm just like, I'm gonna freaking kill you right now. Just do it. But he's the kid that you can't just say, just do it, because it'll never happen. He needs to know why to just do it. So looking at language, look at language. Research confirms that the importance of supporting children's continual learning in the primary language at the same time fostering new language. So, for instance, I know a lot of people will put, when they individualize for Spanish-speaking children or Creole-speaking children or whatever languages you have in your center, they tend to want to just have them do English. Well, if I speak at home, that's where I'm safe, and I speak Mandarin at home, that feels good to me. You need to incorporate that into your classroom environment so that I can learn it both ways and understand it and connect to it. Children have to make a connection, and we make a big connection through language, okay? So I actually do speak Mandarin Chinese, and I would, if that was my first language and Miss Green was trying to teach me how to say hello, you need to say it in their language first and then English, so that you're respectful of the language barriers, but you're also letting them know it's okay. Like, we can do this together. It makes kids feel a lot more comfortable to see things in their own language. Same thing with working with the parents, which is a big part of getting to know your kids. So abilities. Advanced learners, you want to make sure that you're always providing your advanced learners with stimulating and challenging experiences so they don't get bored, because what happens when we get bored and frustrated kids? They start messing with the other kids, right? They usually, your smartest children with the highest IQ will have the most behavior issues because they're not being challenged. So you need to make sure that you are providing opportunities that are tailored to those children's needs. Because when we don't, kids tend to get labels further down the line as the bad kid. And then when if they ever get tested, which most of them don't, because once you get those labels as the bad kid, they don't usually test you for gifted and things like that. But if they actually do, they usually test very high. So really, they were never the bad kid. They just weren't challenged enough. We were just like, oh, that one can do that, so we weren't giving them any new opportunities. So you also want to keep in mind that even if a child is advanced in one area, that doesn't mean they're advanced in all areas. So in that video that we were just watching, that one little girl knew her colors, she was very engaged, she was guessing all the right answers what was in the bag. You still need to make sure that we're adding in challenging things for her in other areas. You can't assume that because she gets this well, that she'll do okay with math, or she'll do okay with science, or different other subjects, okay? So every domain, you need to evaluate where your children are at. All right, how are we doing? All right, we got about 15 minutes, so we're gonna start. I think we don't have that much left to go. All right, so the other thing to look at is disabilities. Remember that the ultimate goal for children with disabilities is the same as for children without. They need to have full access. Isn't that baby picture so cute? I know, I love it. I love picking pictures from my PowerPoints. But they need to have the same access to the curriculum, and you need to make sure they're included as a regular child, but you're just individualizing things towards their ability, okay? You're adding in supports that will help them be able to do the same thing as all the other children in your classroom. You don't want to make them feel like they can't do something. That's the difference between disability and ability. They all have the ability to do things, but there may be some that have a challenge in that, in being able to get to that point. So let's look at, these are some 6-month-olds. So at 6 months old, they should be able to roll over from their back to their stomach. They should be able to sit up with support. They should be able to support weight on legs when standing. Maybe like, you know how babies like kind of like do that little bouncing thing, hold on to something, they start doing the little bounce. They should be able to roll back and forth, sometimes crawl backwards, using that backwards crawl babies do. So when to individualize. If you have a child who is 6 months old who is not responding to sound and voices, like I say, Jennifer, Jennifer, and they're just like my husband does when he hears his name. If you see that, those are times to individualize. If you see that they're not bringing objects to their mouth, at 6 months old, everything's in their mouth. Like the world is new. I'm touching everything. If you see they're not doing that, If you see that they're not rolling over back to front, or if they're not using their hands to grasp and hold objects, these are the times to individualize for these children, okay? 18 months old, we should be walking. Have you ever had a child, raise your hand, have you ever had a child this age that wasn't walking in your classroom? Was it because of a disability, Molly, or they just weren't walking? Right. So with my youngest daughter, she was 18 months old and she was not walking, and I was freaking out because all my other kids walked at like 10 months. And I took her to the doctor, and the doctor said, there's nothing wrong with this child except for y'all don't put her down. The youngest children tend to be babied and coddled and oh my goodness, and we didn't realize that we weren't giving her an opportunity to be put down. Even in her preschool, her teacher was like, oh, my little Bree, she was the smallest one. Everybody wants to pick her up and hold her. So he literally said, you're not providing, she has no need to walk. Why walk if you could be carried around your whole life? And until you put the child down, they won't walk. So if you have children that are this age that are not walking, ask mom and dad, are they getting on the floor? Are we spending time? And then also check yourself. Are you picking this child up a lot? Are we holding them too much? Are we not putting them on the floor? You may find sometimes that parents are keeping them in the swings or things like that where they're not being able to be mobile. So it can be a lot of simple things that have nothing to do with a disability. Just the opportunity has to be placed there. So as soon as we put my daughter down, after he told us that, she walked in 2 days. We were enabling her. And then we wanted her to stop walking. She was in everything. So 18 months, we should be walking. Some of them are actually running, pulling toys, the little toys you can pull back and forth, helping get themselves dressed, drinking from a cup, eating with the spoon. And if you notice, most of these things you could see in your housekeeping area, right? If the kids are playing in housekeeping, you can observe almost all of these things. So when to individualize for these kids? If they're not imitating. Imitating means I'm talking on the phone, I see them talking on the phone. If they're in, let's say they're in one of the centers and they imitating the teacher and they roll in their neck, that's imitating. But if you notice that a child never seems to copy or imitate anything they've seen or done, if you're reading a storybook and you're doing the hands and this child is just sitting there like, and every time you do interactive, you do your hands, feet, shoulders, that child is not interacting, that's the time to individualize for them, okay? If they're not playing with toys, they're not scribbling or picking up objects, and they're not even trying to feed themselves. So all conversations to have with the moms, with the parents, or the caregivers, and you really need to try to figure out how to put these things in place to make sure they move to those levels. 2-year-olds, the same thing. We're not going to go through all of them, but you know what 2-year-olds should be doing. So if you don't see those things, you want to make sure that you're adding in those individualizations for them. So these are our 5 domains, right? These are our school readiness domains: approaches to play, emotional health and physical, language development, and cognitive development. These are all the areas that we're looking for growth. We're looking to see that children are developmenting in the making developmental progress in these areas. So when you're looking at approaches to play, babies need to be on the floor. Some new parents, especially young parents, tend to be very afraid of putting babies on the floor. Whether or not because they're not cleaning their area well, the floor is filthy. So we really need to educate parents about cleaning your floor. If you feel like it's still dirty, put a clean blanket on the floor. But the baby has to get on the floor. Making funny faces. Babies with boxes. Boxes is a great fine motor for babies. If you don't have a bunch of toys in your classroom, a box is an amazing thing. You put a box, tie some strings in it so when they pull it, it pulls in different directions, put ribbons on it, textured things. They will play with that for hours. You want to see that they're pushing and pulling things, so you make sure you're providing those opportunities for the kids that are not doing a lot of mobile things to push and pull. We need to see if they can push and pull. You also want to do a lot of fill and dump with the water play. So if you're only comfortable outside with water, that's fine. But take them outside, put cups, strainers, calendars, things to fill up, things to dump, things to, when they pick it up, all the water comes out. That's a really important important development for approaches to play. And then lots of textures. One of the things that I make for EHS Classroom are, some of you may have seen it, is the sensory path. So I just take like cardboard or construction paper and I put different textures. So one might just have a whole bunch of pom-poms glued on it. One might have beans or something glued on it. One might have the fur texture, and I put the path and I lay it out on the floor, take the kids' shoes off and let them walk around and touch and feel and step on it. Those are really great ways to introduce approaches to play in our school readiness domains. How many of you know the importance of crawling? Do you know? Have you ever had a child that didn't crawl at all? They just got up and started walking? Anybody ever had those children that just got up and walked? No? Well, I've had some kids that will just start walking. So one of the things is for that is crawling is really important. Crawling is what develops those fine motor skills in the hands. Also, kids that skip crawling have difficulty with writing. I can't use my digits well if I can't crawl. Crawling develops the hands. So if you ever see that kids that are having a difficult time with writing or holding things, just kind of ask the parent, did they crawl a lot, or did they crawl for like, and they may say, oh no, they never crawled, or they crawled for like a month and they started walking. So then that gives you the indication that you need to individualize fine motor development for those children, okay? Kids that did not crawl for a long period of time, because their hands will not be developed in the way they need it to be. So if you see kids not grasping, not holding things, those kids need to have more of these fine motor activities. So you need to do a lot more, let's touch it, let's grab it, let's pull it, do a lot of push and pull, things like that for those babies, okay? When you're looking at the social and emotional domain, you want to making music with the babies. I know you guys all do that. Music, touch when you play with your babies, puppets, toys to explain simple emotions. The puppets are really good for doing emotion, like I'm sad, you can use the puppets to do that. Acknowledging the infant's emotions by using words such as I see you smiling, smiles mean you're happy. Creating opportunities for infants to observe, interact with other infants in the environment, which we do that already. Right now with COVID, one of your big things that you're going to need to be doing is the serve and return. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. So we talked some about this already. So the serve and return, when we're doing, like, does everybody know what serve and return is, right? If I talk to Molly, I say, if Molly makes a noise, because in your age group, most of your kids are not talking, right? If Molly makes a noise, I make the noise back to her. If she does it again, I keep doing it until she stops doing it, okay? That's the serve and return. It's very important. If you make the noise and they mimic, that's a higher level child, okay? Continue that. Also, that can lead to kids that are very musically inclined, because most of the sounds that babies make are actually tones. And children that are very musically inclined, that will have a future in music, tend to be in families that play a lot of music, go to church, and there's a lot of like praise and worship, or they listen to praise and worship in their house, or you're having dance parties in the house. So kids that are exposed to a lot of music in the home will tend to be really good at serve and return before they can speak. So you're going to repeat everything, talk, read, use facial expressions all the time. When you're changing diapers, we're talking, oh my goodness, how is your day today? I'm just going to change your diaper. You look so pretty in your outfit. Talk, 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 talk. Talk until when you get home, you don't want to talk to your husband, you don't want to talk to your kids, your neighbor, the phone, nothing. That's how much you need to talk, okay? Use your really good voice. So let's look at parentese. Everybody knows what parentese is? I'm going to show you a cute video. So parentese is that melodic tone, that really high-pitched tone that we talk in. So let's look at this video.
Can you turn your, good job. So you can say.
Hold on. All right, can everybody see the guys on the screen? Yes, okay.
Never gonna make it.
Formation for wide
Come on
outs.
now.
Here
Come
comes
on.
the snap.
Do this for me. Come on now. I need this.
This is called parent ease.
Look at daddy's boy. Look at daddy's boy. Look at daddy's boy. How's my mighty man?
Babies love it. And this sing-song speech helps them learn language.
Hungry? Yes.
You're my big, strong girl.
This blue. C'est vraiment très
So
joli.
pitch your voice high
It's you, baby.
Is that a nose?
and repeat your words.
Panda bear's nose?
You're helping your baby learn sounds and words.
Get some spaghetti.
Babies learn sounds and words from
So you see what happened there? I love to see guys do parentees. It's so hilarious to me to just see them use those high-pitched tones, but it's really important. One thing that was kind of a misconception for a while is that parentees needed to be using made-up words. You want to make sure that you're still talking and you're using proper grammar. Like you're still talking and teaching children how to pronounce words correctly, okay? But you're just changing the tone that you use when you say it. So let's look here. So one of the other things we're going to look at is cognitive development, which is the last domain. Thinking, toys that present a challenge. So you want to make sure you're doing those things. Problem solving by learning how to think things through from trial and error. Understanding words and gestures. You know, I'm a big fan of using sign language, so you should be using that in your classrooms, especially for EHS. Your children will be the most amazing communicators. Understanding their words, remembering faces, sounds, and how things smell. So let's look at a video on this. Let's stop sharing. So I want you to watch this boy, and I want you to see. So we're individualizing for him to help him get more critical thinking skills to really problem solve and look through things. So clear a little bit advanced. So they're trying to get him to look at solving things on his own. Now you're going to notice that the teacher is not interjecting here, right?
It's okay. Try again. Try again. Try in there. Yeah, try again. Try again. Yay!
She's praising the successes, but she's not jumping in to take over.
No, try a different spot then. What about here?
But she does need to address when he gets frustrated, right? Because if you
No,
let him
what
get
about
frustrated,
here?
he will stop.
Yeah, try again. Try again. Try again. Try here. That's it. Try again.
Okay, so do you see what was happening in that video? So that's where we were talking about like checking and seeing where children are getting frustrated. You want to address the frustrations, because if you don't address them, then they just stop altogether, right? But you also don't want to jump in, because then they don't learn, right? They don't learn how to problem solve. Have you ever met a teenager that seemed very entitled and wanted everybody to do everything for them? That thought they needed this, they needed that, and you should do that for them? Entitlement is a learned behavior, and it starts in preschool, okay? If I put down a toy, and you see how he was doing the puzzle, if the teacher had just went and put it in there for him, he'll never try. This is really important when it comes to boys, because this is how we get, it's the stigma of a lot of guys that won't do more, that lack of ambition. For girls, we as women being teachers, we tend to want to help make the girls a little bit stronger. And so we see that. But in the boys, sometimes we don't want to deal with the frustration, so we're just like, here. What happens is that becomes the child that thinks that everything should be given to them. I don't need to work for it. So if you put, and teach this to your parents too, because if you put a ball on the floor and the baby starts to reach for it, and it's like, ah, and mom just gives it to them, or you just give it to them, they never learn to work for anything. The expectation is you're just going to give it to me. All right, so let's try to, so we are at the end of the presentation. Please, let me check the chat room and see if you had any questions. Were there any questions that anybody had? All right, I am typing in your link. That's your link for the quiz. If you click on it, you can take the quiz. And, oh, hold on one second. And let me give you my code word. And my code word is RISE. Well, I hope that you guys learned something today. I really, really enjoyed you. It's very difficult, well, not difficult, but very different to do this way. I think we'll get better and better as we do it. But I really, really appreciate you guys coming on. And I hope that there was something that you learned you could take back from it. If you come up with any questions later that you would like to know or talk to me about, I'm going to put my email here in the chat, and you may email me. All right, you guys, have a wonderful day. Bye-bye. Molly, the quiz didn't work. Hold on, let's try it again. I clicked on it. Let's try. I don't know, it's working for me. When I click on it, it works fine. Do you not have, do you, Molly, are you on a regular computer? Do you have Microsoft Office? Is anybody else, is the quiz not working for you? Yeah, the quiz is individual. So if you click on the link from the chat, it should take you right to the quiz. You got it? Yeah, so if you're in a group, you will need to take it separately, okay?
It's still not working for me.
I will send it to you directly to your email, okay?
Okay. Do you have my email or do you need it?
Put it in the chat and I'll get it out of there.
Okay.
Is the quiz working for everybody else? Got it. Oh, Molly, are you at a contracted site?
Yeah.
Oh, that's why it's not working for you. Okay.
Okay.
If you're at a contracted site, send me your email and I will send the quiz to you.
Okay. So that email's good that you can send the quiz?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
And I'll just send you the questions.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. See. Or here, hold on. Well, you know what? We can do the quiz together. How about that? Just type your answers in. I'll just show it to the screen. Can you see it? Yeah? Okay. So the first question is, how many learning domains are there for infants and toddlers? That's correct. There are 5. When talking to infants, you should check all that apply. Talk really loud, parentese, repeat everything, use facial expressions, or serve and return. So check all the ones that apply. Put your answers in the chat and I'll check them on here. Parentese, facial. Yeah, so everything but talking really loud. Kids don't need you to talk really loud. What is the code word for my training? Correct. It's RISE. Thank you, Miss Farah and Farah's team and Miss Loretta. When getting to know children well, consider their individual differences in these areas. So what are the areas that we talked about? Check all that apply. Temperament, gender, interest. Good, right. We don't need to consider their race or their parents' education level, but we need to look at the temperament, their gender, and their interest. And the last question, what should caregivers consider before creating individualized lessons? What skills the child has mastered? What skills lead to frustration and challenges? What engages the child? How he or she reacts to objects around them, or all of the above? Correct, all of the above. You did it. Oh, did I forget to check one? Oh, sorry. You did it. You're good. All right, guys, thank you so very much. I will post the link to the, oh no, that's Molly. If you didn't get the quiz, if you're child care partners, you're fine. If you're LSF and you need me to email it to you, send me an email to my email. I'll just respond from that way, because trying to copy them all out of here is going to be kind of hard. You guys have a great day in your next sessions. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your pre-service week. Goodbye.